Hey, hi, hello. Welcome back to Chickling Chronicles, the cozy, slightly haunted nook of the podcast world where we untangle thrilling tales, peer into the shadows of how stories are spun, and, let's be real, get a little too gleeful over dark plot twists. I'm your host, Courtney, a paranormal mystery author who firmly believes that the best therapy sometimes involves writing people who are just a tiny bit monstrous. So, let me throw something at you. Have you ever been watching a movie, popcorn halfway to your mouth, and thought, wait, how did they hook me so completely? Why am I literally sweating over imaginary people? Or maybe you've read a book, become delightfully unhinged over it, and then watch this adaptation only to think, oh, they went there. Was it genius or did it butcher everything that I loved? Today, we're diving headfirst, no flashlights, no safety net, into a modern masterclass of mystery. David Fincher's 2014 adaptation of Gone Girl, based on Gillian Flynn's wickedly sharp novel. We'll pick apart why this story is so devastatingly gripping on screen, how it dances differently than the book, and what dark gems can we pocket for our own storytelling arsenals. But hey, before we get completely lost among missing wife flyers, unreliable narrators, and the worst anniversary celebrations ever, don't forget to tap that follow or subscribe button. Leave a quick review or share this podcast with your fellow story-obsessed gremlins. It keeps this tiny, dark corner of the internet alive and cackling. All right, I want to begin with big, glaring spoiler warnings ahead. If you somehow dodged this cultural meteorite, turn back now. Once you return, because I need you to return, get ready because I'm going to spoil this story for you. Are you ready? All right. Gone Girl revolves around Nick and Amy Dunn, a picture perfect couple in Missouri whose marriage is, well, it's rotting from the inside. On their fifth wedding anniversary, Amy vanishes. The media swarms, the police start sniffing around, and clues, like sinister breadcrumbs, point right at Nick. We're left perched on the edge of our couches thinking, oh God, did Nick kill Amy? Is he that charming sociopath we love to fall apart watching, like in You? Then, halfway through, boom, the narrative table flips. We learn Amy's alive, very alive, and orchestrating an scheme to frame Nick for murder, all to punish him for his cheating heart and garden variety negligence. It's a deliciously dark portrait of manipulation, media frenzy, and two people locked in a dance where love and hate swap places so often, it'll make your head spin. So, let's take a look at the book versus the movie. But before we deep dive into diary pages and blood-soaked bathroom tiles, let's peek at the brilliant and slightly twisted minds behind Gone Girl. We're going to begin with Gillian Flynn, because before she was crowned queen of messed up marriages and psychological autopsies, Gillian Flynn was knee-deep in pop culture analysis at Entertainment Weekly. She's always had a magnetic pull toward the macabre, devouring Stephen King when most kids were still clutching Goosebumps. That dark curiosity is her signature. Her book, Sharp Objects, Dark Places, and of course Gone Girl, all dance on the knife's edge of trauma, secrecy, and women who gleefully refuse to be the good girl. Flynn has shared that she writes women who aren't always likable because she's tired of stories where the only acceptable woman is a moral angel. She also once joked that writing Gone Girl was basically marital cautionary tale therapy. So I filed that under authors who are working through their stuff. Then there's David Fincher, Hollywood's maestro of meticulous dread. This is a director who made you terrified of cardboard boxes in Seven, question your grip on reality in Fight Club, and wonder how many cups of coffee Jake Gyllenhaal could possibly drink in Zodiac. Fincher is obsessed with how ordinary people unravel under extraordinary pressure. It's no surprise he jumped at the chance to turn Gone Girl into a cold, clinical dissection of marriage and media. Something to know about Fincher is that he is notorious for filming scenes dozens, even hundreds of times. Some shots in Gone Girl took over 50 takes just to nail that perfect undercurrent of ease. But now, let's get into the guts of it. Because Flynn's novel is thick with diary entries and confessional internal monologues. Amy's diary, filled with charming, vulnerable worries, seduces us completely. We're lulled into seeing her as this poor, sweet, terrified wife. The film slashes most of that. Instead, it leans on Rosamund Pike's venom-laced voiceovers and those bone-deep, unsettling smiles. And honestly, Fincher's camera does more with one lingering shot of Amy's icy stare than 3 chapters of internal fretting ever could. Both versions end up leaving us stranded in the same dark place. Amy's pregnant, Nick is trapped, and we're all silently screaming. And in the book, Flynn's last lines are scalpel sharp. Amy says, "I'm pregnant." Nick replies, "I know." The end. Cold, precise, like two vipers coiling together. Fincher tweaks it, leaving Nick's anguish to bubble silently behind his eyes. And let's not forget the director's twisted gift to us, that now infamous shower scene where Nick wipes Amy's blood off her skin like he's performing a grotesque ritual. 100% a Fincher original flourish. Here we'll see This is where we'll see Flynn's and Fincher's holding hands across the void, cackling. The book is laced with sardonic, almost guilty giggles at how monstrous love can become. The movie? It's stripped down, washed out, leaving everything a sterile blue-gray. It feels like a clinical autopsy, leaving you chilled long after the credits roll. But why did they choose this story? Well, Flynn was fascinated by what she calls the dark underbelly of relationships, how trust can sour, how people weaponize affection. Meanwhile, Fincher's entire filmography is basically an ode to people hiding knives behind their backs. A story about marriage as the ultimate long con? This is practically Fincher's playground. Fincher once said he loves characters who are compelled by something dark and don't understand why, which basically sums up both Amy and Nick. So let's think about, why does this adaptation work so well? Well, because it's fearless. Flynn knew her own story inside and out. She wasn't precious about slicing off subplots like Amy's parents' financial drama to zero in on the real twisted meat, the psychological chess match where trust, manipulation, and perception constantly swap sides. Then take a look at the casting and direction. Rosamund Pike is amazing. This Amy, she's a walking contradiction, fragile and icy, magnetic and repulsive, sometimes in the same breath. Ben Affleck, meanwhile, might as well have been custom ordered to play the handsome, slightly vacant husband who never quite sure you can trust. And then there's Fincher, the puppet master. He's a perfectionist, tweaking lighting, tweaking microexpressions, pushing for dozens and dozens of takes until every scene feels like it's vibrating with quiet dread. Even his famous washed out color palettes make you uneasy, like your brain knows something is wrong, even if your eyes can't say what it is. Then there's the pacing and the reveals. That midpoint twist, it was a clinical gut punch. The book lets you stew in suspicion a little longer, wondering if Amy might still be alive, if Nick might actually be a monster. The film, it tears off those bandages with surgical glee, leaving you to watch in horror or guilty delight as Amy orchestrates her masterpiece of revenge. But here's the kicker. Both versions didn't just work, they devoured the world. Flynn's novel sold over 2 million copies in the first year alone. It hit the New York Times bestsellers list, a dream, and basically pitched a tent there for months. It sparked heated debates in book clubs, articles, and endless think pieces about Cool Girls and Toxic Marriages. The film, it was just as monstrous. It clawed in over $369 million worldwide, which is rare for a dark, twisty thriller with no superheroes in sight. Critics drooled over it. Audiences, they couldn't stop gasping over it. And Rosamund Pike snagged an Oscar nomination that forever changed how we looked at her. I'm sorry, Pride and Prejudice fans. She's Amy now. So, why did it land so hard? Well, because it holds up a warped mirror. It's not just about Nick and Amy, it's about all of us. Our hunger for scandal, our rubbernecking over someone else's tragedy, our willingness to believe beautiful lies if they're told just right. It's a story that gleefully lets you point fingers until you realize you're complicit too. So, what takeaways are there for writers and story lovers alike? Let's crack open this dark gem and see what exactly we can borrow for inspiration. So, whether you're a writer, storyteller, or someone who just loves dissecting deliciously messy characters, here's my tips for you. One, play with unreliable narration. Gone Girl is practically a masterclass in this. In the book, Amy's diary is our tour guide for half the story. It leads us gently by the hand through her love story and fears. We eat it up. We believe every page, every charming, terrified line, until we turn the corner and wham, the rug is yanked out from under us. Amy was crafting that diary to frame Nick. Those sweet little confessions, calculated evidence. In the movie, you get this too. Her voiceovers are seductive, confessional, dripping with vulnerability, until the midpoint twist. Then suddenly, her voice is colder, sharper, practically giggling at how she thoroughly duped us. The takeaway? If you're writing, think about what your character isn't telling your reader. How can you let them draw the wrong conclusions so you can twist that knife later? Tip 2. Know your medium. Internal monologues are brilliant in novels. Flynn's entire book swims in Nick's guilty thoughts and Amy's manipulative musings. But Fincher knows film needs something else. Instead of letting us sit inside their heads too long, he takes a look, a loaded pause, or even a smirk to say something else entirely. Like that scene after Amy comes home, the media swirling, Nick smiling for the camera, but there's this deadness in his eyes. You feel his horror without a single internal monologue whispering, God, I'm trapped. The takeaway? Whatever you're making, script, book, or even a comic, ask yourself, does this belong inside their head or does it hit far harder on their face? Tip 3. Layer your themes. On its glossy surface, Gone Girl is a missing wife story. But underneath, it's a searing autopsy of modern marriage, the stories we sell to the media, and how we contort ourselves into roles: the good husband, the cool girl, the doting victim, all to keep the narrative neat. Remember, when Amy has her cool girl monologue in the book, tearing apart how women mold themselves to be what men want, or when the movie cuts to news anchors gleefully speculating on Nick's guilt, turning a private nightmare into public entertainment, use that. The takeaway here is that rich stories work on multiple levels. Let your thriller also be something bigger: love, ego, survival, society's bloodlust for a scandal. That's what's going to make it linger. Tip 4. Make your characters flawed. Not a single person in this story is safe from moral rot. Nick cheats, lies, creams for the cameras. Amy's a brilliant sociopath who turns victimhood into a lethal weapon. Even the side characters, like the sleazy TV host or Amy's sleazebag ex, they're all tangled up in their own petty agendas. One of the best examples, the book scene where Nick rehearses his lines in the mirror before a press. The book scene where Nick rehearses his line in the mirror before a press conference. He's agonizing over which version of the heartbroken husband will play best on TV, in the movie when we in the movie when he tries to hug Amy for the cameras right after she returns and she flinches, then forces a smile. It's so uncomfortable, you almost have to look away. The takeaway? Don't scrub your characters clean. Let them lie, let them fail, let them slip into selfishness. Readers and viewers won't look away, they'll lean closer. And number 5, let dark humor in. Flynn's writing sparkles with sly, acidic humor. Amy calling her pregnant belly a pocket of warmth as if it's just another trick up her sleeve. Or how Nick thinks about how men can't win the court of public opinion if they smile wrong. Even Fincher lets this darkness be a bit funny. Like, even Fincher lets this darkness be a bit funny. Like that painfully awkward press conference where Nick tries so hard to seem devastated. It almost plays like satire. The takeaway? Darkness paired with humor makes horror sharper, suspense more bearable, and your characters infinitely more memorable. So yeah, whether you're a writer plotting your own sinister web or just a story lover who thrills at watching people unravel, Gone Girl has endless lessons to steal. Just promise me one thing. If you're writing diary entries to frame someone, let's keep that fictional. So, all right, friends, that's where we'll close our little autopsy of Gone Girl. Whether you're a writer, gleefully plotting your own web of lies, or just someone who loves to gasp at the gloriously messy characters, I hope this gave you some dark little gems to stash away. Remember, the best stories hold up a cracked mirror, making us squirm, laugh, and wonder just how monstrous we might be if pushed the wrong way. Before you vanish into your own twisty plots, if you enjoyed this deep dive into marital mind games, unreliable narrators, and cinematic dread, go ahead and hit that follow or subscribe button. Leave me a quick rating or review, as it truly keeps this cozy, slightly haunted nook of the podcast world alive and scheming. Oh, and if you want even more story, if you want even more story-filled chaos, you can find all of my links, behind the scene rambles, and info on my book, The Missing Reflection, waiting for you in the episode description. If you're craving a paranormal mystery with its own secrets and shadows, give it a peek. All right, that's it for this one. So keep creating, stay curious, and maybe keep an eye on your significant other just in case. See you in the next chapter. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Chickling Chronicles. Make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you never miss a story or a conversation. See you next time.